Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Derek Calvert, the program manager for the Montana Educational Talent Search Program. And this is Careers in Sight, where we get an insightful look, into some various different careers that you can find throughout Montana and or really throughout the world. Just to kind of give you a glimpse into what this career field is like and really what type of person, what type of who goes into these careers to kind of help you to see if this could be a career for you. And we have an awesome guest today, Dan Hargrove. He is a professor at Rocky Mountain College. Dan, I don't know if you want to kind of tell a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I spent my career in the Air Force. I did 21 years as an Air Force pilot, and I flew cargo planes and trainers and flew all over the world. For a good while now, I've been the director of the aviation program at Rocky Mountain College in Billings. And that's really what I want to talk about. We produce four-year college graduates who go to regular college and take normal college classes and play trombones in the band, and they're cheerleaders, and they're on the football team. It's a regular college experience, but they're learning to fly. So as we talk, I want to talk kind of on behalf of a young graduate of our program and what they're doing with their professional career. They spend 4 years here taking classes and learning to fly, and then they go out and spend a career as a professional pilot.
That's great. Yeah, so everybody listening in, if you are interested in, becoming a professional pilot, flying private planes, professional planes, going into the aviation career field, listen in. Feel free to ask questions, comment with questions, whether you're watching this live or afterwards. You can always comment. We'll get the questions answered to the best of our abilities and hopefully help you out and hopefully help you discover your future career. So just jumping right in, we don't want to take up too much of you guys' time. So first things first, Dan, what is the typical day like? What does the typical day look like for a young pilot?
So these students come to us typically right out of high school. They spend 4 years going to college. The major is called aeronautical science, so you can major in flying airplanes. After graduation, they go lots of places. Many of them go to the airlines, which is probably what you picture. But we do have occasionally someone goes in the military. They go up to Alaska and fly backcountry bush flying. They fly for hospitals. They do corporate flying for a big company or a bank. Let me mention airline pilots, since that's probably the biggest one. So they're 23 years old. They just graduated from college. They have the necessary flight experience. A typical airline pilot works about half the month, maybe 4 days on, 3 days off, 3 days on, 4 days off. So they spend about 12 nights a month in a hotel somewhere, and they're flying really nice regional jets. You've been on them before. If you've been on an airliner, particularly in Montana, when you look up in the cockpit, you don't see much gray hair up there. Those pilots are young. You may have been looking at a 23 or a 24-year-old graduate of our program. So they fly all over the country. They'll maybe do 3 flights a day, spend the night in San Diego, fly 3 more legs and spend the night in Ohio, whatever. But spend about half the month gone. But the other half of the month, 3 days on, 4 days off, they're just home. And I think one thing airline pilots often say they like about their job is when they're at work, they're busy. And it's very interesting and very fun. And then they come home and they've got 4 days off and they're 100% off. The phone does not ring. They have no responsibilities for work, and they're free to do whatever they like with their free time.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I know many jobs have that 3 days on, 4 days off kind of thing. And so I've always wondered how many times a day a pilot might fly. If it was just a couple times, one time, or as you say, 3 times.
And that's for a smaller regional airline. When you fly out of Billings, you're probably on an airline called SkyWest, even though the tail of the airplane says Delta on it. So they're flying shorter flights. The flights are, probably between 1 and 2.5 hours. As you get more senior in the career and you're flying for big Delta, hey, you might be flying from Los Angeles to Tokyo or from the East Coast to Europe. And then your whole day is one flight, but the flight might last 8 hours. So young pilots are flying 2 or 3 or maybe 4 times in a day.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And I guess that makes sense. If you're on a flight that takes 16 hours, it would be,
Yeah,
that'd be a long
you're
day.
beat at the end of that one flight. That's right.
Well, that's super interesting. And so I guess for like, is there any, for somebody flying more like private planes, is that in like a smaller business or?
Yes. Any student starts out flying the little single engine propeller airplanes. That's what we have. And so if you've ever been in a small plane or you just see them flying overhead, that's how you learn to fly, because they're not cheap, but they're less expensive to fly. And they're simpler. So you do that while you're in college. And then at the end, in our case, and then at the end of college, the airlines hire you and you go into a jet that's very expensive to operate. So nobody learns how to fly in a jet aircraft. Everyone's learning to fly in a smaller propeller plane. Let me just show you on here on my desk. Typical, this is what we fly, a single engine airplane. They're still worth about $500,000. They're very expensive, but they're not airliners.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Start off small and you get big.
Yes.
And, so Dan, what helps someone, or what helped you, but what helps someone decide that they want to go into an aviation career or become a pilot?
I interview all of our students, and when they're coming in, they all say something similar. They usually start with, I can't stand the idea of sitting behind a desk from 9 to 5 every day. Shoot me. I want a job that has varied hours and varied location. I don't want to be behind a desk. Pilots always say they've got the greatest view in the world. While they're at work, they're sitting in a cockpit flying around the world. So willingness to have a haphazard schedule. I think a lot of people like that. But pilots don't go to work at 9 in the morning and get off at 5 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. They fly on Christmas Eve. They fly in the middle of the night. They're on call. The phone rings and they have to run and go fly because they fly for a hospital, for example. So liking a kind of a haphazard schedule, being willing to, got to be honest, are you going to ever miss your kid's birthday or miss the big soccer match? Sure, that's going to happen because flying it's a 24/7 job. But enjoying travel is usually a very common characteristic. People say, I just want to go see the world. I can't imagine how awesome it is to get paid to travel. One thing about the airlines is in your off hours, you get to fly for free and you get to take your family to fly for free. So if you want to go to whatever, go to Disney World and you've got 5 days off, load your family up and go to Disney World and the flight will cost you nothing. That's a nice perk to it. Enjoying science. It's not heavy duty science, but it is obviously about physics and weather and machinery. So having a mind that likes those things. You don't have to be a math expert. Nobody does calculus while they fly, but having a spatial mind, seeing cause and effect, just liking that sort of thinking really does help. So I tell students, hey, you really ought to take physics in high school. It's not required, but it's a big help. And the types of topics that happen in physics class are definitely the types of things pilots are thinking about.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate each of those answers because I feel like that can speak to lots of different students, and in terms of someone who wants to travel, someone who doesn't want that 9 to 5 job, really kind of someone who loves to be able to, work in a way that they get to see just amazing sights flying through the skies. I mean, I could only imagine. I've never been in the cockpit of a plane. Up in the air. I've only been a passenger. I can imagine it's pretty amazing, that view. I really I think each of those answers is really vital. It sounds, I mean, especially when it comes to becoming a pilot.
Derek, one thing I hear pilots say all the time is, I can't believe they pay me to do this. And I would hope whatever career any of our people watching go into, that you say that. That's a tremendous blessing to go to work and say, I would do this for free if I had to, because you enjoy it so much. And I see that out of pilots all the time.
Yeah. I guess for, any of our viewers, and, this wasn't a question I prepared you with, but what is the job outlook, in the future for pilots?
I think if you're serious about this at all, I'd encourage you to Google the topic, pilot shortage. For a few minutes last year during COVID, aviation took a big hit, of course. We all know that. But that's ancient history now. The hiring is back. There's tremendous demand for pilots. One thing about becoming an airline captain, for example, it takes years to do that. So if the industry needs more pilots, it can't produce them very quickly. They have to spend 4 years in college, if that's the path they choose, and then work their way up. So there's a lot of older pilots retiring. Honestly, COVID added to that, because a lot of companies asked their most senior pilots to retire early, which they did, but that created even more demand. So in the coming 10 years, there's just tremendous demand. Every one of our graduates gets a job. Just when they're ready, they get a job right away with the company they want. It's a pretty good system, and there's tremendous need.
Yeah, that's really great to know. I imagine, for anybody looking into this career field, Google, look up some of the numbers. You might be surprised and enticed. So I know you were talking about pilots just love what they do. They would even do it for free if you asked them to. But I guess what would you say is the most enjoyable part of being a pilot?
It's a combination of adventure and science and, frankly, beauty. Pilots all the time are just taking pictures of sunrises and sunsets and mountains and those sorts of things. So I think there's an inspiring part to it. And it's kind of amazing to take a metal tube, pressurize it, put 75 people in it, take it 6 miles above the surface of the earth, and 3 hours later you land and you're in New York City or whatever. So it's that combination. I think it stirs a pilot's soul. It's just beautiful. And it is science and weather and studying weight and balance and all the atmosphere and the physics and the aerodynamics, that sort of thing. And then just the adventure part of it, just getting to travel. Again, different careers are different. I talk to pilots that fly in Alaska or put out forest fires or fly for hospitals. I think all of them have a real sense of purpose. At the end of the day, you saved lives. You put a fire out, you got somebody to the hospital. Think about the importance of the airlines in our life. People use airlines to create business, to go to important events, to just connect. If we had no airlines, it would be a phenomenally different world. So I think that all is very satisfying for a pilot. So I'm giving a long answer. Beauty, science, and job satisfaction is kind of my combination.
That's great. And I mean, even just listening to you, it sounds like you love this career field. You're passionate about it.
I do. And the people around me do. They really do.
And so, with every job, there is a challenging or difficult part. So what would you say is the most challenging part of being a young pilot?
No one day is hard going through training. It's just there's so much of it. So it takes perseverance. You've all heard the comment, this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. That's what becoming a pilot is like, because it takes a few years of study, flying, one more lesson. It's humbling. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone fails a flight because every flight is graded. So it takes great perseverance. You have to really want it. But that's true for anything in life. All the good stuff doesn't come easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So it's the hard part is just the perseverance, is being committed to the studying and the preparing for a flight, and then having that success and then doing it all over again and all over again. And in the meantime, it is fun. and it is satisfying. But I think sometimes student pilots find out it's more work. I always joke and say, you want to hear the angels sing. Oh, I'm going to go fly, and the angels are going to sing, and it's going to be all beautiful. You might get that for a moment, but for the most part, you're working hard, and you're thinking and planning and doing mental math, and it all fits together, and it's very satisfying. But it does take a long-term view because it takes great perseverance.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's definitely something for everyone to know and to consider. It's not just like what you said. It's not just getting behind the wheel of a car and just going. It's there's a lot more to it. And so my last little question for you, Dan, is: do you have any advice, for a high school student looking into this career? What would you tell them looking at that?
I would be exposed to aviation as best as you can. There's a lot of great websites, of course. If you could go to an air show, I would go. If you have a family friend, ask the people around you who knows a pilot. One thing about pilots, they like to talk about themselves. And if you can find a pilot in your life, a friend of a counselor, a friend of a parent or something, I guarantee you, if you say to that person, could I come out to your hangar? Could you go to coffee with me? Could you just tell me some stories? They love what they do. I can pretty much guarantee you that. And they'll be very excited to talk to you. So get that exposure to somebody who's in the business. The other thing I'll say is I've only talked about being a pilot. There's lots of other jobs in aviation. Being a flight attendant does not require the college degree. Still lots of travel. Totally cool world. Being a mechanic, you can fix trucks and cars, but you can also fix airplanes. College in Helena has a very good maintenance program. It's a special license to be a mechanic on an airplane. To be an air traffic controller, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole lot more to aviation. Pilots tend to be the most visible, but there's a lot more to it than that. Just like anything else, stay in school, do well in school, take the college career track. Don't go for the easy path in math. If your high school only requires 2 years of math, that's not good enough. Take 3 or 4. Again, it doesn't mean that you can't go on, but you really need to have a math science background, and it's a way of thinking. I already mentioned physics. I'm a big fan of students that take physics as well. But also taking good English classes. Just work yourself as much as you can, because the whole person is what matters. Last thing I'll say is flying an airplane, it's not so much about flying the airplane. It's about leadership. It's about decision making. It's about working on teams. It's about study. It's about all those things. Every day you're in school, studying and learning and growing, you're making yourself into a better employee. And in a cockpit, boy, you've got to be able to communicate well, and you've got to be able to lead well. So play sports, study English, all of those things add together, but specifically get around airplanes and do math and science.
That's great. So much information too.
Yeah, I'm talking fast, I know.
No, I say it in a grateful way that I think for everyone listening, for myself, I think it provides me with information, to be able to consider, wow, a career as a pilot or aviation. There's a lot to it, and we tell this to all of our students as well. For any career field, really just investigate. Go talk to somebody, job shadow. Go online and look at different websites regarding these career fields. And I appreciate you mentioning not only a pilot, but all the other different careers within aviation that might be similar. If being a pilot isn't just for you, there's other careers that are somewhat similar to that. So yeah, I really appreciate the advice, the information that you provided today. I'm grateful for your time, Dan. I know being a professor can be busy, and we just appreciate that.
Derek, you're very welcome. I'm glad you called.
Well, and with that, everyone, we just are grateful for your time in watching this video. If you have any questions, like I said earlier, comment. We'll try our best to get those answered. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.